Good day, my students. My name is Kabiru Shola Genti. I'm one of the facilitators for the program titled Introduction to Human Resources Management. So in this course, we'll be talking about the literary meaning of what human resources management implies. We're talking about the historical emergence of the concept. Then we're talking about the function of human resources management. I hope you are going to fly together with me in this course so that we're able to have a lovely landing. So thank you and God bless. Yeah, you are welcome back to lesson 5 on human resources management introduction. So in the lesson 1, we have traced the historical emergence of human resources management. In lesson 2, we have talked about activities being performed by human resources management departments or managers. Then in lesson 3, we discuss the difference between personnel management and human resources management. And lesson 4, we focus basically on factors that influence human resources practices in the context of Nigeria. So course now, which is lesson 5, we'll be talking about meaning of human resources planning. This is just one aspect of human resource management function. So we'll be outlining the coverage of human resources planning and who does the human resources planning functions in an organization. Similarly, we'll be talking about the rationale and the need for human resources management. Then we outline the key elements of human resources management, human resources planning models. Also identify steps in the human resources planning process. So then the last but not the least in the lesson, we also be explaining some of the tools and techniques for forecasting in human resource planning. Yeah. So first and foremost, we want to look at the definition of human resources planning. But before going into the definition, it's like every other activities or every other managerial functions involve or require the planning. So planning simply means process of you forecasting or projecting on a particular issue. That is, you rationalize what you're having to get whatever you want to do or wherever you are planning to be. So, but human resources planning in this context is simply mean a systematic assessment of future of human resources needs and determination of action required to meet these needs. So, meaning organization cannot just get to the promised land of profitability or competitiveness if there's no systematic assessment. So assessment in the sense that you have to forecast for what you really need in the area of a human resource, and you determine this particular resource need in tandem with the action required of the profitability, competitiveness, growth, or performance that you want the organization to achieve. So just like Bankole mentioned in 2003, he refers to human resources planning to involve in forecasting for the organization human resource need and the development or developing the step to be taken to meet this. So he argues that organizations need certain steps to achieve some predetermined goal for that organization. So therefore, for organization to achieve that, you have to forecast the number of people you need to work with you, the number of people you need to be on a particular project so that the organization will be able to achieve the predetermined goal of such a organization. So Obisi in 1996 also defined human resources planning, but he described it as a logical approach to forecast. Okay, if you look at the 3 definitions given, you agree with me that all of them are talking about forecasting for future supply and demand of manpower resources in an organization. So let me just go hypothetical in that regard. Assuming I conceive an idea of having an organization now, it is not possible for me to be at the nook and cranny of the organization. So which implies I cannot be everywhere to make sure that my organization gets to the promised land. So therefore, I need some people to work along with me so that the organization will be able to get to the promising land. So for me to get these people to work with me in an organization is what we refer to as a forecasting for human resources a need in that organization. So that is what the first definition refers to, an assessment of future human resources need, which Bankole also call involvement in forecasting the organization need, and Obisi also mentioned that as a forecasting approach, logical approach for future needs. So in synopsis, we can say human resources planning involving maintaining control of quantitative and qualitative flow and stock of manpower requirements in every organization. So which area does human resources planning covers? There are so many areas that human resources covers. For example, how many employees does the organization currently employ? That's how many people do we have on our payroll? How many people are working for us and what are they doing? So the other area is what is the age profile? What age do they belong to? Are they millennial? Are they generation S? Are they generation Y? Are they baby boomers? So the intergenerational between the age profile. So what age are they? Age 5 to 10, 15 to 18, 18 to whatever. Then where is the organization? In the organization, where are these people? Where can we find them? So where can we meet them if we are planning to employ them? For example, if my motive is to set up a hairline organization, for instance, so I will need a aeronautic engineer, I will need nautical scientists, I will need waiters, or what do they call them, hostess, and the rest of them. So the question is, as an organization, where did I get these people from? Did I get them in the shore of Nigeria? Did they have to go outside Nigeria? Did they have to contact some of my partners abroad to make sure I get the required number of people that I need in that particular organization? Then how big is the organization? So how many people do we need per organization? Is it 5, 6, 7, 8? So if you are doing this one, what we are doing there is what we refer to as human resources planning. Then what skill do our employee must possess? What skill do we need them for? Must they be multitasking? Must they be multi-skilling? Must they just be focused in a particular area to be an expert, or whatever? So how this is what human resources manager have to put into consideration when they are doing their human resources planning. Then how many employees on average do the organization need per year, and why? So these are the things that the human resources planning need to focus. So not only that, we look at the area of our business, that which particular business we are going into, what caliber of employees do we need? What caliber of employees do we need, so that we'll be able to know, must they be BSc holder, must they be MSc holder, PhD holder, or people who have less than degree to be in such an organization. So it depends on the motive or objective of that particular organization. Will tell us the caliber of people we need in such organization. So who does human resources planning in an organization? This is a very fundamental question. Who does the human resources planning in an organization? It is being done by human resources department. Okay, just like somebody who wants to build a house, they just build a house overnight. You have to do some kind of a planning. So the same thing also happens in the world of work. So as a human resources manager, the first priority for you is to plan for the required number of personnel, the required number of workforce you need in that particular organization. So human resources planning is being done by human resources department of every organization. So therefore, we can argue that human resources manager is the one that does human resources planning. So human resources manager that does human resources planning. So I want you to into consideration. Then the need for human resources planning. Why do we need human resources planning? Of what significance is the planning matter to organization? There are so many reasons that has been adduced by scholar on the need for human resources planning in an organization. One, in order to maintain numerical stable employment over time. That is for management to know the data of number of employee, where they are, how many they are, how many they employ, how many were putting on job, and whatever. So it make organization to have database of a required workforce in an organization. So human resource planning also ensure getting the appropriate number of staff, just like I mentioned earlier, that those people that we need, how many do we need, where do we get them, what knowledge or skill must they possess, and at what price are we paying them in the area of wages. So it's also help us to know the operational need of an organization. At least to know how sufficient supply of employees in right places at the right time and at the right cost. So human resources planning help us to know this. The human resources also recognize the legitimacy of difference aim and value and attempt some reconciliation both through careful employee planning and management through appeal of consensus and trade-off. So what are we trying to say there is it is with the help of a human resource planning that we are able to have some kind of a balancing, to have some kind of a synergy, careful employee planning and management consensus. So how many do we need? How do we go about them? Do we have the money to pay for this? If you don't have, how many should we shed off or lay down or rank size or what have you? So we'll be able to know all this one through the knowledge of human resources planning in an organization. So last but not the least, it also addresses the potential and development need of employee. Yeah, we're talking about, oh, yeah, this is the number of people we have on ground now. So for us to foster commitment and productivity, how many of them should we send on training? How many of them should we reduce? How many of them should we send for seminar or what have you? So human resources planning also help us to address the problem of developmental need of employees an organization. Yeah, there are so many models that has been developed for human resources planning, but because of time, I will just have to look at what some of these models have to take into consideration. First and foremost, the model have to consider the policy or strategy of the human resources in that particular organization. So, because when we say model, we are talking about graphical illustration or the theoretical underpinning that explain how the human resources planning should be carried out. So if you want to look at this one now, we have to look at the policy and strategy of the organization in the area of a plans. Then again, what you need to consider there is the need to consider from both external and internal perspective. That, oh, where do we get these people from? Must it be from within or from the outside world before you come up with the paradigm? Then the factor that influence human resources planning, uh, which is purely labor market, also need to be factored in. So we call them external labor market factor. So this include the skill, wages and salary, population wise, education output, competitors, government regulations or legislation, trade unions. Then how legitimate to reckon with all this also need to be factored in when developing the model. Then the manager should also look into the labor market and analyze it so as to be able to attract the right caliber of personnel from which he can employ into such organization. So all these ones have to be factored in when you are doing human resource planning model. That is when you are developing the for human resources planning. So not only that, we can also look at the internal labor market. When we say internal labor market here now, we're not talking about outside, but we're looking within the organization. Oh, we have vacancy for this kind of people. Can we look for people within the organization to do this particular job? So that is when manager must analyze the inventory. So how many of these people do we have on ground? How many of them have the required knowledge so that we'll be able to elevate them or promote them to the existing position rather than just looking at the external environment. So this also have to be factored in as a human resources planning manager or officer. So that is when you look at the details analysis in terms of occupation group, scale, department, the experience, age, qualification, then sex group and which group. So this one have to be looking into. So we call them a internal labor market. So they are purely talking about inventory system the organization have to do. So the last but not the least, the area of auditing. So this is very, very important when you are doing human resources planning. So when we say auditing here, it enables one to know what is happening to the existing workforce. So auditing of the labor force is like a train moving at it reaches a station, then some people go down and some people enter. So you take statistic. So that's exactly what I'm just trying to say. So you take statistic. How many people are retiring this year? How many people are we going to have? Do we have shortfall or whatever? So how many people do we bring in or we promote? Because just talking about the statistic taken, inventory taken. That is what auditing is all about. So this also have to be taken into consideration when you are doing human resources planning. So these are the steps that you need to follow when you want to do human resources planning. So human resources planning process consists of 4 basic steps. So the first one is a specific human resources requirements. And what exactly do you need in terms of number and characteristics of the employee? So this need to be defined. Then you define the skill, you know the number required, maybe 10, 25, and this is what they must possess. This must be their character. The next thing you define the skill. Oh, so when you define the skill, what skill must they possess, or what expertise must they possess, and what is total number of people that need to possess this kind of skill and expertise for what department and what for what objective. Then you determine the additional human resources requirement. So that's what we call human resources net. So just like you taking an inventory, oh, this is the number of people going now. Then you take it away from the number of people you have there. Then the shortfall, which is that's what we call the net. So oh yeah, we are shorting this. So sometimes you might have surplus. So all these ones will have to be factored in. You determine the additional net of human resource requirements. So in doing this, manager has to take what I call skill inventory. I've explained that one earlier. When you take statistic of what you have in the house, okay, then before you now look outside the organization. So just like I mentioned, when you're taking the inventory, you look at the number of people going on retirement, people that are going to be transferred or promoted, people resigning possibly because of death or whatever, the which number is being anticipated to replace them. Then you develop an action plan. So an action plan is just like you implementing. Having know the specific requirements you need, you have defined the skill, you have done what we call net human resources requirements. Then the next thing for you is to develop the action plan to meet the anticipated human resources need for such a organization. So here are some of the tools and techniques used for planning and forecasting. There are many. So for example, there's something we call competency inventory. So this one is a detailed file that maintain or contain the data of each employee in an organization. So it lists out the level of education that each employee has, the training they've undergone, the experience they've acquired, the length of service they've put in the organization, then their current job titles, salary, and performance history. So all these ones are what is being contained in the competency inventory. So another thing that you have to do is what we call job analysis. So job analysis is just breaking down the tasks for a specific job. So when you analyze, then you'll be able to know the job description and job specification. You know, when you break it down, then you know, oh, this is what we need, and this is what that person is going to do. So a thorough job analysis has two parts, which we call job description and job specification, that I'm going to discuss in due course. So let me start with the job description. It simply means an outline of a position, essential tasks and responsibility. So that means what that person is going to be doing on that particular job after the job has been given to him or her. So perhaps you have to be reporting directly to line manager. You have to be taking instruction from so. You have to be reporting to this. You have to be doing this. Blah blah blah. They are just purely position talking about the essential tasks and responsibility that is being required. So the job specification is a list of personal characteristics or competency that whoever is going to take that job must possess. For instance, maybe the person must be a BSc holder, must have a knowledge in computer, must be analytical in his world, might be an orator. You know, it depends on what that job requires. So that's what we call job specification. So it simply means personal characteristics, competency, and experience that a worker needs to carry out on a particular job. So then replacement chart is also another tool that is being used for human resource planning and forecasting. So replacement chart is a diagram showing each management position in the organization along with the name of the person occupying such a sub position. The other one is what we call a expert forecast. So this is just a variety of expert method, forecasting method, some of which are simple, some are complex, but can be used to determine organization demand for human resources. So the forecasting method to be used depends on time horizon or types, size, and strategy that such organization has been adopted, and the accuracy information available at that particular time will determine what the expert forecast is going to use. So now it is time for question. So let me call one or two of my students here now to ask question as far as what we have presented is concerned. Yeah, what is your name?
Ba Adam Lola.
Okay, what question do you have for Prof?
What is human resources planning?
Okay, thank you very much, Mubarak Damilola. Okay, you also want to ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. What is your question and what's your name?
My name is Aramide.
Aramide, come closer, come closer. Aramide, so what question do you have?
I want to ask the tools for determining human resources planning.
The tools for determining human resources planning. So thank you very much. I will attend to you one after the other. Like Damilola Mubarak asked question about human resources planning. When we say planning, it's just a process of forecasting for required human resources need in an organization. So just like I've said earlier, so when you project that these are the number of people I need to work for me in an organization, okay, and this is a qualification or experience they must possess. So when they are doing this kind of a thing, what we have done there is human resources planning. So back to the second student question who was asking for the types of tools that can be used for human resources planning. I've mentioned so many tools the other time. I talked about competency inventory as a tools. I talked about expert forecasts as a tools. I talked about using the job analysis as the tools. There's so many tools that you can use, but whatever tools you use, the rationale behind it is for you to project for the number of people you need to work for you in an organization, which we call human resources need in an organization. And for you to get that need is being depends on the strategy or the objective of that particular organization. Are we together? So these are what can be used to solve. I mean to use as a tools for human resources planning as a human resources manager. So thank you very much for that wonderful questions. Can you see my students at work class? So they are together with me to make sure things were being done appropriately. So in summary to this class, we have discussed what human resources planning entails. We've talked about some of the factors that leads to human resources planning. We have talked about the steps that human resources manager needs to adopt when developing human resources planning. We have also talked about some of the strategic tools that human resources management can use in development of a human resources planning. But one thing that I want you to take home is that human resources planning is tied directly to strategic planning. So what did that mean? Every organization have their own vision and mission statements, just like I mentioned, their objective. So whatever plan you are having as human resources manager should be in tandem to the goal, to the objective, to the mission, to the strategy that the organization have. So typically, business goals are established first, followed by goals for the managing human resources, and all this will be consistent with the broader goals. So it is large, then you now narrow that goal down to the least person in the organization. So which means every person in the organization have to key into the goal of that particular organization, and this has to be done strategically. So through human resources planning.